And hello there, and welcome back to another Volcano live stream here on Twitch, where we're going to talk about the most recent episode of The Mandalorian.
Hey everybody, that was a great night of Star Wars, and we're looking forward to jumping in and talking all about it.
Yeah, so we also had the time to watch Bad Batch, though we're not really going to talk about the most recent episode of Bad Batch tonight, but they did make reference. There was one tiny note where somebody referenced Balmorra, so we thought, hey, why not? Balmorra is in this game. We'll jump in and play some Balmorra here. So that's kind of fun.
We'll talk about Bad Batch a bit more tomorrow night, without going into spoilers. It was specifically the Imperials leaving, Imperials on the planet Balmorra. It was Imperial occupied Balmorra, and that's what's actually happening in this time frame as well, even though it's thousands of years prior. We're on a Imperial city on the planet Balmorra at this point.
Yep, so it's one of the earlier planets in the game, but there's lots to do. We're pretty familiar with it, so we're just sort of going to run. As always, we like rotating through our characters. These are not some of our main characters, so we're just going to play them pretty casually, not taking things too seriously in terms of rotations or, proper combat or anything like that. We're just running some heroics and content in the background just so we can chat about the recent episode. So I guess we'll jump in. I'm going to be pulling up some of the notes I made while watching the episode. And we'll jump into it. I guess if let's start with toxic bombs. That's usually where I start here.
Yep. So we're both playing Imperial snipers, which is kind of fun. Both wearing Imperial, specific Imperial gear. And yeah, range DPS is just a little bit less brain intensive, I find, on the whole. So yeah, that episode was directed to get the ball rolling, directed by Carl Weathers, who plays Grief Karga. Knew that it was coming up at some point. There had rumours that it was this week, and that's the way it panned out. It was fun to see. Really enjoyable episode. When it started off, just talking at a high level here, I thought it was going to be a little bit lightweight in terms of maybe some development for Grogu, but then some really fun things happen in terms of flashbacks, and we'll get into that in detail very, very shortly.
Yeah, after just a sort of high level, I noted this only had a runtime of 32 minutes, which, considering the runtime of last week's episode, was a bit disappointing to go from nearly an hour to nearly pretty much half that. Kind
of disappointing, but I have heard that episode 5 is a nice long one as well, so it's not that we're getting all short episodes. It is straight up that they're crafting episodes based on what the story needs, and I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, like I understand why they do it. It's just it's just like, surely you can just, I don't know, give us some random conversations there, just to flesh it out a little bit. But oh well.
I'll take it as it comes. Kind of have to.
Yeah. So the recap at the start seemed to focus on sort of Mandalorian Creed, snippets from the covert, and the whole sort of living waters, and the scenes that we had seen on Mandalore where Din Djarin goes into the mines and redeems himself. Let's go to settling debts.
I think the recap even had that glimpse of the Mythosaur eye once again, just to remind us.
Yeah.
In case we'd somehow forgotten.
Yeah. So the episode sort of opens with sort of a high level shot over a rocky, sandy planet. And we soon see that this is where the Mandalorian covert is. I don't think we necessarily have a planet name for this one yet.
No, we don't.
Certainly hasn't been said out loud in the episode. It might just be an unnamed planet that they've found that's, inhabitable. With a few monsters and whatnot, but nothing much that puts them.
Well, it's pretty inhospitable on the whole. There seems to be random attacks by monsters.
Yeah, giant monsters from the sky or from the water. It's probably a good reason why there isn't at least a settlement nearby where they are. But we get this kind of cool training montage.
Yeah, very much that.
all sorts of different combat. You know, some are like, you know, just sort of hand-to-hand combat. Others are practicing with their blasters and knives and stuff like that. Because Mandalorians do have a lot of... we see some spear work, which makes me think of, you know, the Beskar spear and things like that, you know, so...
We even see foundlings being trained to use jetpacks.
Yeah.
A couple little things like that going on, which was kind of fun. Foundlings, younglings, I mean, they're not all foundlings.
Yeah. But it gives us some great shots of Mandalorian costumes, you know, like I get the feeling that costume groups will really appreciate episodes like this, which is lots of variety, lots of inspiration for your own.
And it was all out in daylight as well.
Yeah,
so so really quite clear.
Well lit. So it's really quite fun. We see Bo-Katan is watching. She still has her helmet on. And we get this cute little moment of Grogu sitting on the sand. And at first you see all these rocks around him and you think that maybe he is using the Force to arrange these rocks or do something like that. But you discover when Grogu picks one of them up that they are in fact sort of hermit crabs living inside shells that kind of look like rocks, and he's not really moving them, which is a cute little moment. But when Grogu goes away, a whole bunch of them scuttled back into the water, which makes me think whether they were implying that they were sort of drawn to his presence in the Force, or just random. Who knows? That's sort of what it felt like.
Yeah, they were encircling him, if I remember.
Yeah.
David's in chat. Hey, David.
Yeah, it was a very cool episode. Even though it was short, yeah, there were some very, very cool elements in there.
It was a slow start, but a nice one with lots of fun detail and that real cool punch. So we're just talking about the training montage. Yeah, lots of Mandalorians. Fun to see a few variants in the armor and equipment. I really like armor that has a metallic finish. There were a couple in there that really caught my eye. That had a coppery bronzy type finish to their chest plates. Just as a side note.
Yeah. So we see Din Djarin sort of giving sort of big dad energy and sort of shuffling Grogu, saying it's time for you to learn. Because one of the, I think it's the same boy that we saw basically reciting the creed and sort of becoming a Mandalorian. It's basically asking why Grogu isn't wearing a helmet, and they're like, well, he's not old enough or big enough or whatever to sort of say it, and you can't sort of like, you know, can't join up if you can't say or understand the words that you're saying. And basically stands up and challenges Grogu to fight, which I thought was interesting. I wasn't sure how they were going to play that.
No.
And they decide on little wrist darts, which we find out are little paintball little versions. I was a little bit worried. And of course we see sort of the older child sort of hit Grogu pretty quickly twice.
At this point, Grogu, I think Bo-Katan even mentions or comments that he doesn't yet know how to use.
Yeah, he's never used something like that.
So a little bit surprised. He's implying that he's undertrained. But yeah, it takes him a few moments to work out what's going on. So cops the first few hits without delivering any blows himself.
Republic's last gasp.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he kind of gets a little, encouragement, because, Din Djarin knows that he can use the Force, or at least, can, do better than just stand there and be target practice. So for the third round, Grogu finally sort of realizes what's up and Force jumps over the kid sort of behind him and then back in front and sort of hits him in the chest 3 times, deeming him the winner of the match because he landed 3 hits. And the foundling kind of walks off a bit sort of annoyed, I guess, that this tiny little thing bested him in a duel.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of bravado and a lot of sort of internal rivalry, I guess, just in terms of, because there's reputation to be had in terms of being a skilled Mandalorian, I presume.
Yeah.
Yeah, even so, yeah, that affects the kids at the kids' level. So.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting that we were gonna that Grogu is being trained in this way.
Yeah, well, I figured they would have to reference the fact that instead of being trained by the Jedi, he chose to go back. So if he's going to be a Mandalorian, then he has to be a Mandalorian, which isn't just following Din Djarin everywhere. He's going to have to, eventually not get that much bigger, but he's going to have to like grow up and eventually have armor and everything like that. I think it's interesting that we don't really see alien Mandalorians from what we can see in this covert. We see that they all
humanoids.
That we can see, like, they might be different under the helmet, but they're certainly all humanoid bodied.
Yep.
We don't see sort of any that look different. So I mean, I guess they're like still sort of it's not common for a species such as Grogu or just very different ones to sort of join up with the Mandalorians. So I guess that's another sort of note. So then while the Mandalorian kid walks off, I was writing notes, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the kid gets basically swooped down and grabbed by a large flying creature of some sort. Yeah, not exactly named.
Later on, I think they're just referred to as a raptor.
Yeah, it's kind of big, sort of pterodactyl-y type thing.
Yeah, with a ugly head.
Yeah. Because it did remind me of the scene in Jurassic Park 3.
Yep.
Where, flying dinosaurs grab people and sort of swoop off with them, presumably back to a nest of some kind. And we see that, yes, the Mandalorians do sort of activate their jetpacks and chase them. But you can see that they just don't have the fuel in their jetpacks to get all the way to where the lair is for this beast. So they sort of have to abandon the chase, and it sort of flies away. And then we get the title, The Foundling, which at this point I am assuming is sort of referencing Grogu.
Yeah. So particularly when we think about the scenes that come up shortly afterwards, the flashback scenes.
Yeah. Let's do Firestar. So there was some really quick sort of talking scenes. Bo-Katan said that she sort of flew up high and saw where the lair was.
Yeah, well, we did see that just before the title card as everyone's fuel was running out and they lost range on their jetpacks. The Bo-Katan's Gauntlet fighter does fly overhead and is still able to pursue the raptor, the monster.
Yeah. And then Din Djarin wants to join. We see Paz, and sort of the armor is kind of arranging this all. And we see Bo-Katan's Gauntlet fighter fly off in the distance. And I honestly thought the story was just going to follow them. I don't know, that's sort of like the way that it seemed to be leading up, but it's almost a little bit of a background story for a while, because we get these rather kind of cute scenes of
Auntie Armora.
The Armora with Grogu. She's like, well, he's a foundling. This is a Mandalorian covert. Okay, let's just get on with it.
Spoil him,
yeah. And sort of takes him inside, and we get this really cute shot of him doing this really quick shuffle run, because I guess he's used to being carried, or have his little pod, but he has to do this little scuffly run to sort of catch up with her because she's walked off into the tunnel, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, but it did make me notice. It did, I think, in some ways emphasize that he is a bit more agile, a bit more mobile these days.
Yes. He's not sort of struggling to take steps. It's not running exactly, but he's definitely moving a lot faster and a lot more sort of sure-footed. He's not sort of like falling over like a toddler learning to walk or something. He's doesn't necessarily need his pod to get around. It certainly just makes things easier. Oh, dread it. That was me. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It takes fills with time. Release resistance.
You got a really long range on these rifles. I thought they were out of range, and poof, got them.
It's at 40 meters, isn't it? Where everything else is 30.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Balmorra takes Grogu deep into the covert's cave where her forges.
Yeah.
She starts just talking to Grogu.
She says something like a lot of work to do. This is the forge, which is the heart of Mando culture, and she sort of talks about like as they shape the metal, Beskar, so do they sort of shape themselves.
Yeah, and as soon as she started saying that, I thought, oh, she's going to make something. This didn't get to come back, and Grogu's got some cool new armor pieces.
Yeah. But I thought it was funny. I've seen lots of references of the sort of the scene very early on when Mando's getting a piece of Beskar armor and the armor is doing all the hammering, and then he kind of has I've seen people jokingly referred to as kind of like war flashbacks, where it jumps where when she's hammering his armor, he flashes back to the conflict where his parents were killed and he is kind of rescued by a Mandalorian. And it's kind of like an echo, because while she's working with some Beskar, Grogu is sitting there watching, and he has a flashback.
It took me a second. He had this very distinct expression on his face, and I didn't know if he was getting scared. It took me a second to work out what was going on, but yes, he was processing, and it was triggering flashbacks.
Yeah.
To the temple, of course.
Yeah, because one of those big teasers from earlier on in the season was the fact, actually it was Book of Boba Fett, wasn't it? Where we get a little bit of a flashback from Grogu's time in the temple, because based on his age, he should have been there during sort of the prequel era and Order 66, and now we get a little bit more of what he remembers.
Yes, and the second that propped up, I mean, I can't remember if it was conveyed directly or indirectly later, that someone specifically, and I guess it's kind of implied because he's not mobile or mature enough at that point, at the point of Order 66, but someone has to have taken him off, actively had taken him off Coruscant.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh boy, this is a flashback. Are we actually going to find out who that is? Is it going to be a named character?
Yeah, because people have had their theories about who it could be. So it starts out with the sort of the scenes that we've seen before of the 501st troopers coming through the door and Jedi sort of in front of him trying to fight them off.
It's all from his point of view, because it's his memories. So it's very much first person.
Yeah. Then we see Jedi sort of getting
coming in both directions down the corridor.
Yeah, and not sort of surviving the onslaught from the clone troopers. And I can't remember at what point he kind of somebody pushes him into the elevator.
Yep.
But is not able to follow. They are lost. But then when the elevator door opens, we're at sort of like an open taxi pad area. And this is where we meet the instantly recognizable Ahmed Best as a Jedi. And he has technically played a Jedi before, though in a slightly less sort of canon way. He was sort of like a Jedi host for a sort of a Star Wars kids show. Was it a reality show, game show?
Yeah, it was a game show. He played a character called Kelleran Beck, Jedi Master Kelleran Beck.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was referencing that or basically going, okay, we can put him in somewhere and kind of canonize his sort of character.
And what I know of his biography, so he it was called Jedi Temple Challenges or something, the kids show. I think it only lasted one season. But I think he was specifically acknowledged to be particularly adept with lightsabers.
Yeah.
In that iteration. So if they keep the name, if they keep the character as part of canon, that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
His robes were very simple in the reality show, whereas they're a bit more embellished in this one. And I think he had a purple lightsaber. So I mean, it might not turn out to be the exact same character. It might just be a nod and a bit of loyalty
we've got
to
our buddies back here.
Yeah. Either way, it was super cool. I almost liked that surprise more than if it had been someone, an established character from
Yeah.
prequel trilogy era lore that we'd already known. I think that
We need to
nod
go.
and that inclusion. Yeah, go on.
Question of motivation.
I think I actually thought that was more impactful and really cool for Armored Best and fans of him.
Yeah. Because when we get to the end of this flashback, we know that this Jedi character, we don't see their demise. So I like that. Picking a new character lets them be a bit more freer with what's going to happen.
So let's just finish off the flashback, because there was some other cool moments. I mean, there's the whole chase scene over Coruscant where a couple of gunships, Imperial gunships now, I guess, or they're still Republic, but Imperial.
So they're on the landing pad and they are once again sort of ambushed by 501st troopers, and he manages to sort of fight them off. And he grabs a sort of a speeder bike that's kind of got like a sidecar-y type section.
Yep.
That's Grogu. And Grogu looks younger in this. He looks like an infant. His eyes are bigger. He looks way smaller. It appears to, though I guess I'd have to see side by side, be the pod that Din Djarin finds him in the very first episode. It kind of looks like it anyway, even if it isn't. And so they sort of take off through the Coruscant traffic to escape the clone troopers and the temple in general, because Armored Best has also got clone troopers trying to kill him. So we get this cool sort of like speeder bike sort of chase scene with the sort of classic Clone Wars Republic gunships chasing them down. They go through a tunnel, and he kind of sort of goes through a train station, sort of Coruscant train station. That was quite cool.
I thought, because I thought for a second when he went into that tunnel, I thought, he's going to lose him. I won't take the Arc 170s into a corridor like that, but they did. But he was able to peel off a smaller side tunnel into sort of basically pedestrian access.
And I can't remember at some point where he basically says, through the train, he goes past the tip of Coruscant, which we saw Pershing walking around in last week's episode. The sort of the one point, the very top tip of the actual Coruscant land. It was like a fun sort of little Easter egg. They just kind of swish by it. It's not really sort of called out, but if you've just watched the recent episode, you would recognize it.
It was the same promenade. You could recognize the Macquarie conical structures in the background as well. Yeah,
and he says that we're going to meet up with some friends of mine, and he manages to speeder along and get to sort of a landing pad with a Naboo starship, which of course is kind of a bit of an in joke sort of reference to, of course, Ahmed Best playing Jar Jar Binks, who is Gungan from Naboo, so it makes sense that, of course, the sort of cluster of Naboo pilots. The ship appears like Padme's ship that she uses in episode 2. Particularly the sort of scenes where you see her sort of flying into Tatooine and stuff like that. But I'd have to see side by side to make that judgment.
Yeah, that's the one they land on. Yeah, and Geonosis was and everything. So sure it's the same one.
And the pilots basically are like, it's all fueled up, go.
We'll hold them off.
Yeah. So they take off in that ship, and that's kind of the last you see. So we know that this Jedi character is the one that got essentially Grogu out of the Jedi Temple and off-world. We assume that they actually made it to hyperspace and travel off Coruscant, but they weren't ambushed just beyond. Did you get...
Oh, no, I haven't got this one.
Is it still showing up on my map?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just such a fun nod, and it was kind of like, I don't know, I just thought it was a really neat way to give us a sort of an answer to that long question. Everyone makes jokes and memes about, how did Grogu did he just like not turn up to school that day or something like that? Like, how did he survive? You know, once people did the math on his age and was like, no, he would have been at the Jedi Temple, and then actually, you know, getting a reference for that in those episodes. So it was fun to actually kind of get a big puzzle piece of Grogu's past.
I loved it. It took the whole episode from being just interesting to just, you know, downright fantastic.
Yeah. And then so after that, then we sort of Grogu's kind of flashback sort of ends, and he's back with the armorer. And she's talking about when people sort of make armor, they save all the scraps for foundlings. Let's go to Comrades in Arms. They use scraps of Beskar to make little pieces for the foundlings and the young Mandalorians. And we see that she has made sort of like a round, it's not quite a shoulder piece, it's kind of a little flatter than that. A little sort of round piece of armor with the Mudhorn's signet. What's that?
Yeah, she applies it, well, very shortly I'm probably going to say, she applies it to her chest, so I don't think it's...
I think she said something like she'll grow into it or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so they may remelt it down and reconfigure it, but it's definitely not a standard piece of armor.
Yeah.
It's just a protective plate at this point.
Yeah. Which is really cute, because we can see during these scenes that he is wearing his little Beskar sort of chainmail shirt. And now he's got this little plate with the signet on over the top, which I thought was quite fun to see them sort of progressing. They are very, you know, welcoming and inclusive, even though he's not exactly the most adept or typical Mandalorian, that they are treating him exactly as they would all of the others. And then we find ourselves back with I think they reference War Party as a phrase later on. It's landed on sort of a mountain because they know that from past experiences, if they approach with sort of noise, the monster will kill whoever it is that they have kidnapped, captured, whatever. So they're having to sort of make their way on foot. And there's 7 of them. They're not all named characters. It doesn't sort of really matter.
There's Bo-Katan, and 4 randos.
There's like a couple of others, yeah.
But I was pleased as it was going along. I was pleased that I don't know. I kind of wanted Paz Vizsla and Din Djarin to patch up their differences, and I thought that was going to be a good opportunity.
So they've certainly had a few sort of icy tensions in the past. You know, specifically sort of fighting over the Darksaber and things like that. Because we know that the name Vizsla tracks back a long way. You know, there's lineage tracing back to, was it pre-Vizsla in the Clone Wars and things like that. So they've made camp for the night, because obviously it's, I guess, a long way to walk if their jetpacks couldn't take them the whole way. And they're all sort of sitting around, and Bo-Katan's like, she's doing her best to sort of fit in. She sort of asks, how do you eat, you know, if you can't take your helmet off? And he basically explains that once you get your food, you go off and eat it by yourself so that no one's around when you take your helmet off to eat food. And so she's like, okay. And then they're all sort of getting their food. And I think Paz explains to her that because she is the leader of the war party, she gets the honor of being the one that gets to stay by the warm fire and eat her food by the fire. So everyone else goes off to eat their food, and she stays by the fire so she can take her helmet off to eat her dinner.
I thought this was significant for a few reasons. It shows her at least temporary respect for the way, and even if she doesn't, you know, persist with it in the long run. But it also making I shot the wrong way.
That's fine.
Making reference to the fact that because she basically proposed a strategy. She scouted and discovered the location and proposed a strategy. So making reference to her as being leader of the war party, it was a little bit of a precursor to her getting credit for it should it succeed, I think.
Yeah. But I like the fact that they're like, oh, just because she's new or less perhaps senior in the ranks of this particular.
She's
She's only
treated
just
one of the tribe,
yeah
100%.
yes,
Yeah.
which is potentially very significant for her. This is not the way that she's sort of been treated.
This is not the way.
What's that?
You said this is not the way.
I didn't even notice. Yeah. Yeah, she hasn't had this kind of, or at least for some time, she's been sort of abandoned by other Mandalorians,
I'm not even sure if she had quite that level of camaraderie with.
Yeah. Or at least she's realized that, and Koska, at least she's realized that they were basically only her friends and only her comrades because they expected her to be, sort of leader of Mandalore. They were in it for the power, I guess. Not necessarily, because they were like, I don't know, maybe she's come to see them as less honorable. Whereas, this new sort of Mandalorian family is sort of welcoming her in, despite the fact that, they know that she didn't sort of follow the same way. So the next morning, best bet is stealth to avoid the creature killing the child. So they get this sort of very complicated. All my brain could think of is how on earth are they doing this in a practical way? The Mandalorians are all sort of abseiling up this big rock wall, and I'm like, oh, those poor stunt people, that's gotta be hard work, because it looks pretty like realistic. Like, it looks like
not high.
Yeah, they're still having to sort of
vertical one way or another.
Yeah, in costumes like that, if you've ever just like walked around a convention hall in armor like that, that it's not exactly the most comfortable or maneuverable. Certainly a bit better than stormtrooper armor, but
I saw one Mandalorian's chest plate bending a little bit, implying that it was just a foam variant, but still, it was a really impressive scene, impressive work by the stunt crew.
Yeah. And then they get to the top, and we can see there's kind of like a big wooden nest that's kind of got burrows and bits and pieces and stuff like that, and they use their visors to figure out where the child is based on a heat signature.
Well, they think they do. They haven't actually.
Yes.
Did you get that one, or did I get that one?
Nope, you got that one. Neither of us got it?
No.
Okay. Oh well, we've got to wait for the respawn. The dude's going to go off and get some metal. But yeah, I think this is the point where Paz Vizsla sort of references the fact that it's his son that has been taken. Yep. So he's sort of calling out, perhaps making a bit of noise, and sort of scrambling over the nest. I got that.
Yeah, I'll try the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was interesting. It showed quite a significant connection between Paz and his son.
Yeah.
Understandable, but also just seeing it as in the context of the Mandalorian culture was notable, I think.
Yeah, we haven't seen so much a family dynamic within the Mandalorian TV show.
I know that if someone's adopted as an orphan, as a foundling, then they're treated. Oh, come on.
And there is certainly a very sort of strong parental bond between Din and Grogu and stuff. Did you not get it?
No, it's failing for me.
Yeah, because you've got to let it.
No, I understand. Maybe I might have been standing where the lid came down.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting showing that, that his son, and this is where we see the baby sort of monster
the heat
bird
signature,
chicks.
Heat signature is not the son. The heat signature is the chicks.
Yeah. Which sort of grab him, and then the big mother sort of pterodactyl monster appears.
The mother of all raptors, yeah.
Yeah. Which has the child. Is obviously trying to feed it to her chicks, giant monster chicks. And we kind of get a bit of a fight ensuing through a series of sort of events. Paz gets into the mouth or sort of grabbed by the mother monster, and his son is in the claws, and there's enough sort of fighting and skirmishing that I'm not going to make it. It flies away from the nest, I guess, trying to draw attention away from her young.
Yeah, this was really hairy. I thought it was genuine jeopardy. I was really wondering how they were going to resolve this, because they'd already established that, if they shoot at it while it's carrying someone, that person will fall to their death, and the young Mandalorian has a son, does not have a jetpack.
Yeah, he's got a helmet, but that's essentially all he's got as protection. So they Mandalorian sort of jetpack after it flying away. So I'm just going to get through this. Okay, we'll do resistance sympathizers. Yeah, so all the Mandos are chasing it via jetpack, and they're sort of shooting, I don't know if it's nets or some sort of grapple thing, that they're sort of shooting at its wings to try and sort of hinder its escape or somehow sort of bring it down. During this, Paz gets out, so he's no longer in the jar, so that's good, and it drops the child, which doesn't have a jetpack, and we see we're over water at this point, and Mando manages to sort of use his jetpack to swoop down and grab the kid before he hits the water, and the effect of the grapples on the creature's wings has meant that it's struggling to fly, and so it sort of crashes into the water. And then we have a bit of a Jurassic World moment where you sort of forget that in a previous episode where the Mandalorians were all out on the beach, a giant creature sort of came up out of the water. And of course, I'm pretty sure it's that same creature, or at least from what we can see of it. It sort of jumps up out of the water and grabs the flying one in its jaws. So it is taken underwater. And so that sort of problem is taken care of. So and so the boy is reunited with his father, and then we're back at the covert.
Yeah, tiny point along the way. We did see, I think Bo-Katan goes to try and get the child out of the claw, and the raptor bats her with her wings, so forcibly hits her, strikes her in flight. I think that is the point where you notice that she loses a piece of armor. It looks like at that time, her shoulder pauldron.
Yeah. Which is obviously an important part for Mandalorians. It's often where they put insignia, whether it be sort of a painted design or an actual sculpted piece or something like that. And obviously, yeah.
She's pretty sure she's got light arrows on both sides.
Yeah. When they're back up on the beach, they talk about they're sort of like reuniting in that, and shows that which team are you going to go for? These ones over here?
Yes, these ones.
Okay. That they've got like new foundlings, and I was like, what are they talking about? Do they like randomly find some other children like in the nest? And it's like, oh no, they meant the baby beasts. So the 3 sort of baby chicks are let out from sort of the cargo hold of her gauntlet fighter. So I mean, obviously Mandalorians are known for all sorts of skills, riding rancors and whatnot and beasts. Like we saw, Boba Fett. We've seen Boba Fett ride a rancor. We've seen Din Djarin ride Blurg. So I'm guessing that they're gonna they referenced foundling. So I don't necessarily know if they sort of intend to use them as sort of riding beasts, or like actually train them as Mandalorian, or whether she's just sort of saying it a bit tongue-in-cheek or something.
Yeah, I think so.
That they're going to train them up to be sort of like, mounts of some sort.
Mounts, yeah.
Yeah. Which would be quite fun, because it's a pretty ferocious thing when it's fully grown. We saw the mother. And the armorer notices that she's missing a piece and says that you're in need of repair, and sort of follows her into the forge, obviously to remake her shoulder piece, and sort of the armor asks if she wants the night owl sort of engraved, because her armor, oh, was that me? Oh, nuts. Because her stuff is generally painted. She doesn't sort of have a raised or engraved detail.
No metal either.
Yeah, like Dinjarin's is like, you know, fancy and got an extra bit on it and stuff like that. And she asks if it would be okay. I think it's really neat the way she's being like very respectful of, you know, every little sort of nuance to this particular approach to Mandalorian culture, because it's different to her own. She asked if it would be okay for her to have one shoulder be Night Owl and the other be a mythosaur. And the armor sort of talks about the fact that it's sort of like an ancient Mandalorian symbol that any Mandalorian can
I think she
choose.
used the word that the mythosaur belongs to all Mandalorians.
Yeah. And then she basically tells the armor, what would you say if I told you I saw a mythosaur? And you can see the armor at first thinks it's like a vision, you know, some sort of symbolic meaning, not a physical actual one. And then she was like, no, I saw one on Mandalore, and sort of I don't know if she mentioned the living waters.
Yes, she did.
And oh, you're all the way over there. Sorry, yeah. I was taking out these guys. I'm just in auto mode for the path that I usually take. Okay.
Split at that point.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was just a mention in chat that it would have been quite cramped to
yeah.
Raptors and breakdown shift. We've seen, I mean, already had 7 Mandalorians, 8 now with the kid. We've seen last week, the week before, whenever it was, we saw Din and Grogu and R5. They fit in there okay, but 8 Mandalorians and 3 giant flappy baby birds.
Bitey ones.
Yeah.
It's a little bit interesting.
It doesn't seem to have a particularly big cargo hold or anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll let it slide.
But we get like the final sort of shots are the armorer making sort of like a slightly stylized sort of mythosaur skull to put on Bo-Katan's new shoulder piece. And Bo-Katan says, you know, talking about that she saw it, and I think she says something like, one sees many things when you walk the way of the Mandalore, and then she was like, I saw one, and then it's something like, this is the way, like, you can, it sounds like the armorer finally understands that no, she means she saw a literal one, and perhaps, this is going to be interesting for the Mandalorians because the armor's fairly senior.
Yeah,
I feel in this group, so I feel like that could have some serious bits. Do you want to do the last one?
Yeah, might as well. But just on a note there, we talked in previous streams, podcasts about it being a little bit unclear, a little bit ambiguous as to whether or not Bo-Katan kept her observation of the mythosaur a secret because she wanted to didn't want others to know, or because she was unsure of herself. And the fact that she revealed it, the fact that she revealed it to the armorer means that she was just unsure. She's not actually trying to hide it from other Mandalorians, but I think that's notable as well.
Yeah, because we know that her quest for the Darksaber,
I think
it was a little unsure as to whether she wanted to basically reclaim it because she felt it was hers, or she wants to rule, you know? Yeah. Like, she certainly has lineage and everything like that. And, you know, there's obviously a sort of I get a sense that she wants to sort of right wrongs, you know, sort of like restore honor to her family, restore the sort of the family sort of power, honor. In a sense, but yeah, I feel like she's taking this all on board very seriously, and perhaps it is the way that the Mandalorians have treated her that makes her feel like, okay, I think this is something you guys should know, because she didn't tell Din initially. But I think perhaps the way that they have sort of welcomed her, you know, making her armor and, you know, respecting her as leader of the sort of hunting party. And she's really trying to fit in, doing everything. And you can see that she does care about Grogu too. She's sort of talking to him a lot in this episode. Which I think is really cute. No progress on any other sort of plot lines. We didn't get any scenes relating to last week's episode. You know, nothing about the Empire in this one. Oh, they jumped, don't they? I forgot. So, I guess I'm hoping to get a little bit more of an update from that storyline, but I guess they're going to sort of draw it out a little.
Well, it's halfway. Today's the conclusion of that episode marks the halfway point. We've got exactly 4 episodes to go now. So yeah, there's a few story arcs to tie up, but it's, you know, I'm liking the way it's unfolding. We had some presumptions going into it that they might stretch out the whole becoming redeemed story arc a little longer. They got that out of the way in many ways, and this was a good episode and a good direction to take the story.
Yeah, we're seeing her sort of integrating into this new clan. The fact that she's wanting to learn everything, make sure she doesn't break any rules, you know, because obviously they've got a slightly different way of doing things. Perhaps she is aware that if she wants to unite the clans, then she needs to show respect for all the different sort of approaches, the differences.
Possibly that, or possibly the awareness that she'll be kicked out if she isn't respectful. So.
Yeah. I get the feeling that she wants to stay with
genuine.
them.
Yeah, I think she is genuine. But
and I'm just so enjoying seeing her being a large part of this season.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. It really is. Her arc is spanning multiple episodes. It really is becoming part. Her story is becoming.
We haven't had, apart from Din sort of redeeming himself, we haven't had quite as much actual sort of development for him in this season yet. We're seeing quite a arc for Bo-Katan. You know, she started like not wanting to see him. She wanted to be left alone to sort of wallow in her castle alone for, I guess, the rest of her life. And here she is, sort of, you know, she found herself sort of helping him on his quest to redeem himself, and now she's living with a full clan of Mandalorians that, despite their sort of rudimentary surroundings, are thriving. There's a lot more of them since we last saw them. Each time we sort of go back to the covert, we're seeing more of them, and I don't necessarily know where they're all coming from. They must have a way of going off-world somehow.
Yeah,
because they got there. But yeah, they're sort of like finding Mandalorians. I don't know if they're going to touch on that in an upcoming episode, talking about sort of, you know, hunting down Mandalorians and sort of bringing them home, bringing them in. And we see that there are actually a number of children.
Different ages, quite a few different ages. There's some very small looking helmets on some of them, some quite uniquely shaped and modified ones.
I wasn't looking up all the time because I was writing my notes. Did you see any others with their like any characters with their helmet off, or is Grogu the only one?
Grogu.
Okay.
I think.
So yeah,
I think there was kids wearing helmets that appeared to be younger than
the one that we saw. Yeah. Which I guess is why the kid asked why doesn't he wear a helmet, you know, because they don't necessarily understand that he's not a baby, but it's a little hard to sort of nail down his sort of relative human age. Oh, we've still got to do a few things.
Yeah, the other room.
I thought it was fun. We're seeing Grogu learning. You know, he he seemed a little bit unsure about the darts, but we're actually seeing him sort of.
Oh yeah, understandably mystified at the game rules of the game.
Yeah. I honestly thought it was going to be like, I don't know, stun darts or something. And I was like, oh, it's just paintball. Thank you. So I was like, no, and you know, Din Djarin's obviously very keen for Grogu to kind of, you know, step up and learn a bit more about Mandalorian culture, seeing as he chose it. And I like seeing Bo-Katan sort of caring for Grogu as well, sort of encouraging him in that sequence. It's just like, it's okay, you know, your dad's just proud of you, essentially, you know, for why he's suddenly finding himself being shot at.
Yeah.
And I wonder how long it is before we'll get the sort of the part 2 of that flashback. Are we gonna be able to sort of completely join up the dots?
I mean,
not necessarily his homeworld, because you know they're generally actual infants, but where they go between Coruscant and the first episode of The Mandalorian.
The getting him off planet, I guess, was the key thing. That was the imminent threat that needed explanation. But there is a big span of time between Order 66 and episode 1 of season 1 of The Mandalorian, which is post Return of the Jedi, of course. So there's a big time span between those 2 points. So yeah,
and it sounds like
someone's got to have been looking after Grogu. He didn't just get taken off planet. He's not self-sufficient at this point.
But the way that Pershing talks about Grogu, it sounds like they've actually had him in their captivity before. Because it sounds like, you know, like they specifically have had him and they're sort of like, we've run out of blood, we need more type thing. I have to go back and review the dialogue specifically. I'm just getting through the cutscene.
Yep.
But yeah, so I don't know if we'll get all of those bits filled in, but yeah, at least at some point he is found, because the Empire is made aware of his existence, the fact that he's force sensitive, and they know his, they say M count, which I assume means midichlorians. I think that's what most people would assume.
Yes, almost certainly, but yeah, it's easier to say. Or a little bit more, I guess. Yeah, just text speak. We could do a quick second. It's kind of our tradition to round things out.
Oh, we're gonna run out the door. Oh, I'll go up to my house actually. Not that one. It's funny, you can travel up to strongholds but not quick travel out to activities.
Yeah.
So yeah, as always, I kind of hope it was slightly longer. But being actually shorter did mean that we could actually flip around real quick and watch Bad Batch, because the Bad Batch episodes tend to be, on the whole, shorter than Mandalorian episodes. So
yeah. So, side note, I mean, I really enjoyed Bad Batch as well. We will talk about that next tomorrow night. I know we've been not making every single one for the Thursday nights, but we should be clear for that tomorrow.
Yep.
Of course, I really like that episode of Bad Batch. I really want to talk about that one as well. I mean,
well,
back to back.
The Bad Batch is actually like further through its season, so we're ramping up in that one while we're still sort of in the interesting middle section of The Mandalorian. We're sort of getting the storyline really ramping up in the Bad Batch, so it's kind of, that's quite exciting.
So what's going to happen next week on Mandalorian? We've got...
At some point, the Mandalorians are going to have to go back to Mandalore.
Yeah.
You know, they've like... The knowledge that there's potentially a mythosaur there is like... That's going to be like too much to ignore. Oh, sorry, I didn't click it.
Yeah, if they believe her, then they may. But yeah,
But at the very least, they've found out that the planet's not toxic.
Yes.
So they could go back to Mandalore and start rebuilding there as opposed to their hole in the ground.
They're getting repeated
attacks.
Indicators that it's not an optimal place to bring up kids.
Yeah. I mean, it gives them, you know, something to sort of test their skills up against, but...
Oh, yeah, but up until now, they've been having their butts handed to them, frankly.
Yeah, talked about losing, you know, Mandalorians to it. Oops, I got my back turned.
Yeah, starting off a few of these guys off anyway. So yeah.
But I don't know how long they can leave the Imperial thing. I mean, we haven't seen Moff Gideon
yet.
Well,
there's the Imperial thing. I still want IG-11 to show up. There's too much of a tease in the first episode.
They took the statue down, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just need this one bit."
Yeah,
I'm like, well,
too much of a tease. They've got to sort that out.
Yeah.
To the IG fans amongst us.
Yeah. And even just seeing like, sort of Chief Magistrate or High Magistrate? I can't remember the title that he kept sort of.
Yeah.
Karga. Yeah, because he's fun.
So the last episode that Carl Weathers, I think the last episode that he directed in season 2 was a Grief Karga story. So it was interesting that he directed a non-Grief Karga story this time around.
Oh, we ran to the same side.
But yeah, they can't. The whole setup last week can't have been for the sake of nothing. We're going to have to see a lot more Pershing.
Or at least the Imperials.
Well,
I don't know, to be honest, if we're going to see any more of him.
I don't know. It remains to be seen, obviously, but I get the feeling that they set up too much of a story just to abandon.
Because I don't know what her end game was there. It was a bit of a puzzle.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But a bit much just to leave hanging.
I am really enjoying the Mandalorian culture stuff that they're giving us, though. I love seeing so much more of the Armorer. When we met her that first time, I thought, oh, she's such a cool character. What's the odds that they'll just have her in like 1 or 2 episodes and then we'll never see her again? I'm so really glad she's proving to be sort of quite central to this season.
Yeah.
Of course, I always kind of wish that we could see her without a helmet off, and obviously, you know, she is the head honcho of This Is the Way, so I very much doubt that, but it's just fun seeing her being so sort of involved. Be fun if we got to know some of the other Mandalorians perhaps a little more, but I guess we've got to wait and see what comes down the line. This is always Din Djarin's story, but yeah. Or whether we'll see... I mean, Boba Fett's running around out there.
Yeah.
But we don't know how this particular covert sees him. We know that the Mandalorians with Bo-Katan didn't take particularly kindly to him. And he does take his helmet off.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to change. I could see potentially Bo-Katan adopting the way, but not Boba Fett. Could be wrong. We'll see. I think there's still scope for an alliance, though.
Yeah.
at some level. I mean, that would be an adequate outcome that part of the unification of Mandalorians is tolerance for different viewpoints.
Yeah.
What do we got? 25 out of 35 for the
Yeah, we just gotta...
baddies we need to eradicate.
Yep, there's a few mobs.
Start.
Do you think we'll see Ahsoka in this?
It's almost, I'm not sure. It's possible, but I don't feel like there's a need. I don't feel like there's enough room.
Because I wasn't sure if they were going to sort of like have her appear again, because to sort of, I don't know, help tie in, because it's been a while. I mean, yes, Book of Boba Fett, but I think she only had, was it really only the one episode of the Mandalorian series that she's in?
Mandalorian. Yeah, possibly.
My brain's trying to figure it out, and I'm probably wrong, because I'm just the episodes from the Book of Boba Fett kind of all
she never
smushed together
she
a
never
little bit.
travels. She never travels with anyone.
She's basically like,
traveling.
I know it, you know, I can't train him, go take him to Tython, and that's,
Yeah.
I think, then we see them meet up again in those scenes from the Book of Boba Fett. But I'm wondering whether the showrunners or Disney will want her to kind of have a little bit of a kicking off moment before her own series is debuted, or whether they're going to try and keep it very separate.
Yeah.
And of course they, you know, she's looking for Thrawn, which means that he is, by her account, alive in this time period. That does introduce the possibility that Thrawn could be introduced in this series as well. At this point, we've got Moff Gideon, but we don't know if he's sort of running the show, doing what he wants, or whether he is basically reporting to an even more higher up. He's Moff Gideon, but there could be a Grand Moff above him. You know, there are plenty of sort of other Imperials that weren't on the Death Star in Return of the Jedi that would still be running around. So I don't know whether we'll find out more about that scheme. Because, I mean, concurrently in the Bad Batch, we're seeing a lot of efforts for them to clamp down on cloning. But then in The Mandalorian, which is, you know, years later, we're seeing them, you know, with a clone scientist and really trying to sort of do a lot of experimentation and stuff like that. So if it's not for troops, what is it that they're trying to achieve with Grogu's blood, and for who?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be the slow burn under the whole series, or whether we're going to get a little bit more in this one.
Well, it was a shorter episode, so slightly less to discuss on the whole, because there were also some kind of stretched out pieces. I think we've hit on all the details.
Yeah, certainly all the ones that I wrote down.
Yeah. So for now, we might call it and return to the conversation tomorrow night.
Yeah. Had a really fun feeling to this episode. Certainly a bit more fun, a little bit more. I saw some references that previous episode of The Mandalorian felt like Andor in a way. It had a slightly sort of darker tone to it. And this one felt very much like The Mandalorian. It was a little, not to say upbeat, but it sort of had those sort of I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but yeah, it felt a little bit more um, like the Mandalorian episodes. And yeah, of course he's in it, so of course it's going to feel like the Mandalorian. But yeah, that last one sort of felt a little bit different, very intriguing. But it was fun to sort of have that sort of feel again. And it just goes to show just how sort of amazingly talented all these people are, that we watched an episode where no one's showing their face, but we get all this kind of emotion and character development, and you can't see their eyes.
Yeah, right. Not a single human face was seen, was it?
Yeah. You know, the kids, all the adults, it was all... I mean, yeah, we got Ahmed Best and the Jedi in the flashback, but in the contemporary scenes, there were no human faces, and they're all having to do a fair amount of dialogue and a fair amount of sort of, you know, acting, but you can't see their faces, which I think is really quite a tricky balance for... I mean, there aren't that many shows that do that. You know, there's certainly creature makeup and aliens and, you know, things like that, but getting the sort of the emotions and character development coming through. I'm kind of missing seeing Bo-Katan's face, because Katie Sackhoff is awesome.
Took her helmet off briefly. We did see her take
No, but like the way that she reacts to things.
Yeah,
you know, you sort of like... At least we've seen her with her helmet off, so we can sort of, you know, get a feel for her character. Not that we needed to for Din Djarin, but yeah, it'll be really interesting if we... whether she will stay with these Mandalorians, whether it will be a group effort to kind of reclaim Mandalore, if this is where that's going, or whether there's going to be sort of like, I don't know, Bo and Din sort of going off on their own to do sort of unfinished business, seeing as he has the Darksaber, but it doesn't seem to come up.
No.
Which is interesting. She doesn't seem to be bitter about it. It certainly doesn't seem to be, you know, cropping up in their conversations or anything like that. Yeah. I mean, the Armourer is aware that that was sort of like a thing that you can sort of like claim to lead Mandalorians, but that doesn't seem to be a current issue, not since Paz sort of fought him unsuccessfully for it. Everyone's just kind of like, well, he's got it, but he's not leading, so it'll be interesting to see if the Darksaber will become a more important component in an upcoming episode. It was such like a big reveal when they first brought it into the show. I feel like they perhaps are deliberately not focusing on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of hope it'll be significant coming up.
Well,
you know, if you pull together Mandalorians coming together, Mythosaur, Darksaber, there's a whole lot of puzzle pieces coming together.
Still got a feeling that Moff Gideon is going to show at some point, and yeah, the Darksaber will definitely come into play under those circumstances.
Yeah, I get the feeling Elia Kane is not working on her own. I think she is still working with Moff Gideon. And I don't know, I kind of see her as being one of the ones to maybe break him out, sort of get him out of Republic prison. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping we get to see that again soon. And David says, I like all the clan covered up and working together. Yeah, because there was certainly a lot of tension between, you know, the characters in those Book of Boba Fett episodes. They're sort of all fighting, and she's basically like, nope, you took your helmet off, you're out, go away. And he's like, no, I can fix it. And now everyone's like, yes, you know, banding together to go rescue a child, you know, teaming up. And all that kind of past bitterness, you know, because Bo-Katan and Din Djarin saved Paz's son. He's gonna, you know, respect that, even if he was sort of a bit hostile towards them in the past. He certainly,
he's still by the book, man. Though he still follows the rules and respects the rules and respects the outcomes of the rules, even if emotionally he doesn't jump at them. He's still with, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. Another Another episode in the bag, another good episode that we will
Yeah.
shortly watch again soon.
Yep. So I guess we'll call it there for tonight. We'll be streaming again tomorrow here on this channel, talking about the recent episode of Bad Batch. Probably cover a couple of episodes of Bad Batch.
Yeah, there's a few to talk about.
Yeah.
And mainly the one that has just screened.
Yeah.
Because that's got a lot to talk about. But the essence of the two preceding ones, I think we'll definitely touch on because I don't know, there's some really good writing, some really good stuff going on in Bad Batch. And I've been really pleasantly surprised by some of the things that have happened and some of the angles that have been taken. But yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yep. So we'll have this stream archived on our YouTube channel. But for now, hope to see you again next week after the next episode of the Bad Batch. Take care, and may the Force be with you.
Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.